The UnPodcast is brought to you by Emma. Get more from your email marketing.
In a world where QR codes kill kittens and customer service is an oxymoron, UnPodcast has set out to make things right. This is the UnPodcast with your hosts, Scott Stratten and Allison Kramer.
I think it's fall now when this comes out.
Yeah, it's fall. And we're playing footsies under the table.
Back to school, to prove to Daddy I'm no fool. Billy Madison, everybody. No? Nobody? Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Lots of wonderful things on the UnPodcast, the business show for the Fed Up. We rarely mention what the show's subtitle/hook is. When you have something that goes, what? We take care of it for you. On the show today, which we don't usually give you a preview as well, we got Instagrammers Instagaming the system.
Haha, good one.
Thank you. A news site that has comments and encourages comments on their site. We have also sites that have put a wall between comments before you can comment. Lots of comment stuff. Digital ads.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Yeah, well done. Digital ads being cut and revenue not changing potentially. I just gave away the whole story. An Audi.
I say Audi.
An Audi. I have an innie. Commercial in China that did not go over too well. An employee requesting a mental health day and what the repercussions of that can and would be, and our made-up word of the week. All that and nothing more brought to you by Emma. Get more for your email marketing. Go to myemma.com/unpodcast for tips and tricks and unique, customized, exclusive content we've made just for Emma. Go check them out there. Our sponsor and a wonderful email service provider. They can do whatever you need to do. Just get in touch with them today.
As long as it's email related.
Yeah,
and they can't do anything you want them to do.
Won't help you make a souffle.
No.
Although I never had an urge to make a souffle. But they won't do that.
They won't.
Well, maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe Jamie makes souffles.
But it's an email service. You know, they're not going to do...
Jamie seems like somebody who would make a souffle.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, we can talk to her about
on
it.
a whim. A whim souffle. Maybe not. On with the show. Thanks for spending the fall with us. Hope the leaves are pretty where you are. This is from digiday.com. This is Podghazi. Instagram influencers use comment collusion to game the algorithm. Comment pods, this is the term here.
Okay.
Got to use that for a made-up term. Are growing in popularity among Instagram influencers, established and upcoming, and are causing some consternation among advertisers. I'm so sorry for using that word. Instagram comment pods are a relatively new phenomenon. Essentially, they're groups of up to 30 Instagrammers. The platform allows up to 30 in a group chat that work with each other to comment on each other's posts on a daily basis. The idea is to hack Instagram by increasing engagement. It's not a hack.
It's not.
It's a tip. Because of the way Instagram's algorithm works, this leads to Instagram favoring pods, which means influencers in pods often appear in the Explore tab, leading to more visibility. Pods emerged because influencers were left scrambling to keep their work visible when the Instagram algorithm debuted. The relationship between posters and users, as well as timeliness determines what is seen. Quote, for brands working with an Instagrammer that is part of a pod may mean their own numbers are wrong, said YouTuber and editor Zach Busey. If you had hoped to get your message in front of X number of people, if you subtract other pod members, that number is dramatically reduced. That said, it's not impossible for these pod members to be interested in the message. It's just not their reason for being there. Swell Shark, an indie media buying agency that works with clients including Applegate and pet food brand Wellness, said it is working with attorneys to put language in contracts with influencers to disclose if they are part of a pod. CEO Nick Pappas said pods can and do skew results. For example, say the company was working with a client that wanted to reach mothers who are into clean eating. When contracting with an influencer, it did research on the demographic of that influencer's follower base to make sure it was those mothers. Influencers will provide numbers of average engagement. With pods, it ends up being 5 to 10 influencers who are friends with the person, not 5 or 10 influencers with the right kind of audience. Quote, okay, so my post is getting engagement, but it's not with the right audience. Pods are also skewing payment. Agencies evaluate influencers on size of audience, but top influencers who are showing high numbers are commanding high prices, and the brand or agency no longer knows if the engagement was genuine. I want transparency behind it, said Pappas. Pods don't have to be bad. If the pods are of a similar interest group to the target audience, they can actually increase engagement and visibility of posts. Quote, I am okay if you're in a pod and it's all other food bloggers who are closely tied, but I need to know. Publishers are also feeling the effect of pods. One publisher said that while it has been seen less Instagram engagement, new publishers, mostly bloggers, are joining pods and growing in multiples, adding a couple of thousand followers per day. There is no doubt pods create results. Influencers report going from around 2 comments a day before joining a pod to 40 to 100 comments on the same post after being activated in the pod. In the closed Facebook group for the Rising Tide Society, a community for creative freelancers that mostly include bloggers and photographers, a search for pods brings up hundreds of requests to either join a pod or start one. Many rules govern pod behavior. Comments should be at least 4 or 5 words. Emojis aren't good enough. Avoid language that is too generic, like love it. Don't post in the pod. Just direct people to your account because a like inside a comment thread doesn't count towards total engagement. Overall, those who have left pods overwhelmingly said pods end up hurting the Instagrammer too. Busey said his look inside pods show that they create false competition. Quote, if you're a small, organically grown Instagrammer, how do you compete with someone who is corking the bat? You see people in pods growing rapidly, getting brand deals. Pod members are also harmed because pods artificially improve numbers and it's not sustainable. Jazz Deal, a graphic design consultant who had participated in many pods, said she left because they're too much work. She said she's also seen paid pods, where moderators request between $5 and $20 from users who want to join a pod, which keeps people accountable and wanting to participate. She said she's seen followers jump from 12,000 to 120,000 because of a pod.
So do you think this is similar, to, we've seen this before with blogs or books or things where a bunch of people get together and they say, okay, if you like my post, then I'll like yours, you share mine, and then there would be emails and stuff that would go out. These are what everyone has posted in the last week. You need to share all of these things. It's similar, right? And it's insular, and I'm not going to use the term that you use to describe it. I'll let you do that. But it basically, it creates this sort of false volume, but it isn't something you can sustain, because eventually everyone sees you're just sharing stuff inside the circle, right?
Whenever there's a system, there's people trying to game it.
Yeah, and it isn't like gaming it, they're not buying. Well, I guess some of them are buying it, but
hashtag team follow back.
Yeah, that stuff.
That was one of the earlier stuff from Twitter.
Yeah.
And we're just what is a brand looking at? Okay, we game the system. Then we're forcing comments. It is inauthentic, and it should be against, if not some of the sites, against their terms of service. I call it the great social media reach around, which is what it is. It's social media reach is just self-congratulatory for everybody. It does. It hurts everybody. Look, influencers have a bad enough reputation as it is. And we used to just call it sponsorships, by the way.
Yeah.
It's the same frickin' thing. We just have the term for it now, which is influencers. Look, getting your product in the hands of people that influence your target market is as old as products themselves. We just have new terminology for it. And it's always happened where people say, hey, can you help share this? Can you promote this? Whatever that is. When we have something coming out from Emma, we also mention people, hey, we'd love you for you to share it. Is that a pod? Is it? So, you know what I mean? So there's a fine line here. And if you pay for it, then does that make it over the line? Or is it simply sharing without condition? Now, that's my problem. There's been a few sites out there, too, like an automated social sites where I for the life of me, I can't remember the name. It'll come to me eventually in the show and I'll just blurt it out. But you joined. And for every blog post you shared of people in your community, you got a credit. And then when you got credits, other people had to share your stuff for them to get credit. So you shared content of your hub, of your group, and you only shared it to get your stuff shared. That, by definition, is the opposite of community. Sharing or caring based on getting something out of it is a direct contradiction of an online community. That is conditional sharing. That is not what it's meant to be. I understand why they do it. I understand, especially now, why they do it, because it's a huge platform. It's a huge sea, and this is where the gold rush is. I could have told you without reading this, it would be bloggers. It would be photographers, because those are the ones who are trying to push this way now, because bloggers, in the eyes of a lot of agencies, are becoming less relevant, and now the Instagrammers are getting the money more. So I totally get why, but you're gaming the system. It is not authentic, and shouldn't have a place.
I think for companies too, it's important that they understand this stuff so that they can understand that the goal and the idea and the value you can get from viralness of something is not based on numbers. It's based on that unconditional share. That's what true viralness is. It's like we talked about in Unselling when we did Third Circle, is that if it's all inside the same group of people and they churn up the numbers, that's not true viralness. Like a true viral content has to be shared by people who aren't connected, so even if it's 50 people, it can be viral if those people weren't connected to the original post.
Yeah.
This could be millions of people, but it isn't actually viral until someone who didn't have to share it, or someone who isn't sharing it because someone else shared their stuff. Until it goes past that, it isn't actually viral. And so to a company that's looking to work with influencers, I think that's really important because the numbers can be impressive, but the numbers don't mean anything if everybody sharing it had to do it, or everyone sharing it only did it because it was in their best interest because they were going to come up with something. So I think what's important about this is that a brand understands what that means.
And this is the problem with today's digital marketing in this day and age. We're no longer satisfied with the climb, which is the gradual increase of reach of something, of content, of a product where it slowly builds and sustains. We want the spike.
Yeah.
Because Instagram now and Facebook is a spike, which is because we have to, because time decay, one of the algorithm feeders in these sites, is like, it'll only, no matter what, if it goes viral, if it gets 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, Chewbacca Mom still spiked and went down because time decay kicks in and it has to stop. Versus if that's truly viral, it'll keep going.
Yeah.
Right? If YouTube used the same algorithm back in it, none of those videos, they would have died on the vine. No pun intended for Vine. But they all would have died. We no longer want the climb. We want the spike. And we're chasing that spike. And that is a dangerous game because a lot of times that spike is artificial.
And so it's not good business. Like you're not actually going to sell anything because of the spike necessarily.
And that's where we lose as community. We've been fed the algorithm addiction. If we can just hit that algorithm, we can get, and we've hit it before and stuff. But at the end of the day, it didn't change anything.
And as an individual Instagrammer or blogger, you also, bless you, you also lose your audience.
Right.
So is it worth it to you? You've spent all this time building an audience, and is it worth it to you to have these inflated numbers, to lose the trust of your audience, to lose the trust in your voice?
And I think the agency, the guy that mentioned in the article, had a good thing. I would make sure if you're working with influencers, to ask them, that's one of the questions. Are you a member of a pod or a sharing group or anything else? And maybe some of the people who join those pods won't admit to it either because they know it's artificial reach. Right? Well, and a lot of reach is, but it's on like purposeful artificial reach. And that's, I don't envy anybody. And anybody listening right now who's in that position that has to work with people, because there's a lot of delusions out there, delusions of grandeur, of delusions of reach, and a lot of people get offended when agencies or the go-betweens ask them, well, what is your actual numbers for this? And they're just like, well, it's not about numbers. Well, everything is, and it's not even about numbers now. It's about actual numbers and actual concrete numbers we can do something with that move a needle, not just hit an algorithm.
The next story we have is from Digiday. I think that last one was too. It's Digiday Week. It says the Times of London finds commenters are most valuable visitors. To start putting a value on those who engage with its platform, the Times of London analyzed comments on its website from May 2016 to April 2017. The News UK title found that those who comment, which amount to about 4% of its subscribers, which is a number that I think we would have agreed with, read 3 times as many articles as those who don't comment. So it says, for now, only Times subscribers can comment. So not only are these people who've subscribed, but they're also commenters. And it says the Times' 1.2 million registered users can read comments, but they can't participate in discussions. In time, the publisher plans to explore using comments to turn registered users into subscribers. So they have different tiers, basically, right? So this doesn't surprise me. I mean, we run a Facebook group and certainly have blogs and stuff and are familiar with the fact that very few people comment right? It's a very small number of people who comment. But what did surprise me is the 3 times more, like the fact that commenters read 3 times as many articles as non-commenters. And so they're just talking about the value of the comments. And this is something we've talked about it was probably almost a year ago now, about blogs turning off their comments because of moderation and stuff. What do you think about this? Does this make you want to turn comments
Well, comments
on?
have certainly dried up on our blog and a lot of blogs. And one of the reasons is because the comments have shifted to not commenting on the post itself, but commenting on the post that shared the post. So Facebook, I share a blog post and I go read it and then I come back to the Facebook status and I comment there. A lot of blogs and news sites turn to Facebook commenting on their page itself, which shoots it back to Facebook. Facebook's the internet for in this case, for a lot of people. I would have found it interesting is if we had the data of them turning off commenting for 6 months and seeing those people, if they kept going as well. But it makes total logical sense that the people who comment, because when they comment, they have to get a reply or something, they come back. And so I want to make sure. I do agree there's a correlation between it, but it would be interesting to see if that was because we've always said since the mid 2000s about commenting gives people a vested interest in community. It's also where things can go AWOL, but.
One interesting thing they found is, so they have recommended comments. So like you can say that a comment was valuable for you. So they said that the people who recommended comments, so not which comments were recommended, but the people who did the most recommending, they read 2 times as many articles.
Right.
So they were reading the comments and recommending them, which I thought was interesting as well. It shouldn't really be surprising because it's any kind of engagement. That's engagement, right? Commenting, recommending comments.
You just have to realize most people aren't commenting, and that's always been that way.
Yeah.
Right. But I like that thing. It's just like Reddit with an upvote. It's like a lot of forums with a star or something. You press on it. It's like Amazon. Was this review helpful? Same as the Apple Store, things like that, where you can have passive conversation. Like it's passive action where I can do something. You don't know I did it, but I can contribute to making that comment go up or down. That is the lifeblood of Reddit. As they say, the front page of the internet, right? The votes, the upvotes, the downvotes, and that allows things to float to the top. And that's how I read Reddit. I sort it by default by most popular, most helpful comment at the top versus newest. Yeah. Because we've said this before, but people don't want recency necessarily. They want relevancy. Relevancy is everything. That's where when it comes to everything from Spotify's curated playlist that it plays to you, to the ads it's served up to your site, to reading comments. If I see more relevant comments on a news article, that gives me another train of thought about something or a different angle.
Sometimes it improves.
That article becomes better.
It does.
But if the first comment says first or something like that, it deters you from adding value to the comment. The only reason we want comments on a blog post is to add value, and most don't, which is why the other reason outside of the comments happening on Facebook, platform-based comments, is that they never added value. The only people who commented were the people who were trolling or disagreeing.
Or it becomes insular, the same people.
Or they were self-promoting. They put a link to their own blog or something else. Like, this reminds me of what I posted over here. So I 100% understand sites that do it. We keep it on because we barely get any anyways. And we like to go back to the guy that got mad at the 59-minute episode from the first week we did the show.
And that's why I like the article that you're going to talk about now. That's why I like this, because I think comments are extremely valuable.
A great contrast on it. This is from the Independent Tech. It says, news site makes readers answer questions to prove they understand the story before posting a comment.
I love this.
So I like this. So the creators of a quiz hope that asking people questions will make sure that everyone on the comment actually understands it, and they hope that forcing people to take 15 seconds to answer it will give them time to calm down. So there's so far, for instance, people might have to correctly answer what an acronym that is used in the story stands for. The creators of the tool, which for the moment is in use on NKR Beta, the broadcaster's tech page, hope that it'll ensure that everyone knows what they're talking about before they actually start talking about it. Quote, "We thought we should do our part to try and make sure that people are on the same page before they comment," journalist Stalgroot told the Neiman Lab, which first reported the news. "If everyone can agree that this is what the article says, then they have a much better basis for commenting. The extra time should also force people to think a little more deeply about what they're commenting on. If you spend 15 seconds on it, those are maybe 15 seconds that take the edge off rant mode when people are commenting. said Marius Arneson. Most of NKR Beta has developed a dedicated following who talk positively in the comments on its articles, but occasionally its stories are published on the homepage or elsewhere, which brings a whole new set of often angry readers who tend to undermine the tone in the comments. Many sites have gotten rid of comments altogether, arguing that they're becoming hard to maintain, tend to become negative quickly, and that people have their own conversations on Facebook or elsewhere. Other websites have attempted to tackle the problem with different technologies. Google announced last week, for instance, that it had built an artificially intelligent tool that can read through comments and identify whether or not they are, quote, toxic.
Cool. I think it's good, but I like questions. I mean...
Well, but we saw that thing, and it was April Fool's Day, and they had like a headline, and in the article is about people not reading actual articles, and people lost it because they didn't read it. So, yeah, people are just going to go off with their own views regardless of what the article says sometimes. So... I would like to make a comment now, though, and thank Emma. My goal here is to make Adam run when he's away from his computer so he can't change the graphic. You can comment all you want about Emma, but we will fight you.
No, they don't have
you
good
in
things
the
to
street
say.
if you ever have a bad thing to say.
Yeah, they'll only have good things to say about Emma.
Just because she has no jawline does not mean she's not strong. Go to myemma.com/unpodcast for all the exclusive content we've made for them, and go to them for all your email marketing needs. If that doesn't describe Emma, I don't know what will. And they're in Nashville and Portland.
This article is from adage.com. It says P&G slashes digital ads by $140 million over brand safety. Sales rise anyway. Procter & Gamble's... Great title, right? Procter & Gamble's concerns about where its ads were showing up online contributed to a $140 million cutback in the company's digital ad spending last quarter, the company said Thursday. That helped the world's biggest advertiser beat earnings expectations. Perhaps even more noteworthy, however, organic sales outperformed both analysis forecasts and key rivals at 2% growth despite the drop in ad support. P&G didn't call out YouTube specifically, the subject of many marketers' ire earlier this year. We actually spoke about it on the podcast in its fiscal fourth quarter earnings release, but did say digital ad spending fell because of choices to temporarily restrict spending in digital forms where our ads were not being placed according to our standards and specifications. Those cuts amounted to nearly a percentage point of profit for the quarter, with cuts to agency and production fees further boosting profits. People familiar with the matter said P&G left YouTube in March over brand safety issues, though P&G has also had problems with ads appearing on video content that didn't match its goals. It's unclear whether or to what extent the digital cuts came from other venues, though Chief Financial Officer Joe Moeller, in a media call, also noted Chief Brand Officer Mark Pritchard's broader efforts to eliminate a significant amount of waste in the digital media supply chain. We talked about it, remember? We talked about ads appearing beside content that wasn't, and it's very nice the way they say it. It's not in line with their goals and all that. But
140 million cut, no change in sales.
Yeah. So
for the people who said it doesn't matter, who are usually, by the way, agency people, it doesn't matter, the United thing doesn't matter, how you treat people doesn't matter. Maybe advertising doesn't matter.
I don't know.
How does that feel? How does that taste in your craw?
It does say in the article Google and YouTube are doing fine without their money, though, too. So.
Somebody's got to figure something out somewhere.
No one misses $140 million. Everyone just keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is from theage.com.au. Our Australian friends. An Audi commercial in China compared women to used cars. It didn't go well.
Shockingly.
An Audi commercial that aired in theaters and online in China is drawing the ire for comparing women to used cars. Well, let's see which way they go with this. Let's just see which way they go. This could be fine.
There's no way this is going to be fine. No, there's no way that this is going to be fine. Okay, let me hear. How are women like used cars?
Hypothetically, let's try this.
Yeah, let's go for a drive. Let's see how this goes and go for a drive. Another bump in the road for the German automaker who once enjoyed nearly limitless growth in the country. The advertisement opens in a pastoral setting with a bride and groom about to take their vows. This is good. This is fine. I'm good. But the mother of the groom frantically interrupts, rushing up the aisle to inspect her would-be daughter-in-law.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, we're going off the rails a bit.
I think we're taking a turn.
We're hitting the little strips on the side of the road going, okay. With a stare, The woman proceeds to pinch the bride's nose, pull back the bride's ear, and then examine the inside of the bride's mouth. Oh, we're in trouble.
What?
Quote, "What are you doing?" the horrified groom asks in Mandarin as he pulls his mother away. The older woman begins walking back to her seat, then turns around to flash the A-OK hand sign. The bride and groom sigh in relief. But the relief is short-lived because the groom's mother again focuses her attention on the bride, this time casting a glance at her breasts.
I can't.
The anxious bride quickly covers her chest area with her hands. The commercial then cuts away to footage of a red Audi sedan zipping along an empty highway as a man's voice declares, "An important decision must be made carefully." An animation encourages viewers to visit a website selling, quote, Audi-approved secondhand cars. Quote, "Only with an official certification can you rest easy." The response to the ad was less than stellar. Several users called on Audi to apologize, which some urged a boycott of the automaker. Representatives for Audi did not respond to questions sent by email on Tuesday morning. An Audi spokesperson told the South China Morning Post that the automaker was looking into the commercial and that it had been produced by a joint venture partner.
Looking into the commercial.
Quote, "We had a Volkswagen at home and my husband planned to get an Audi," one Weibo user said, which is a giant social media site over there. "I was against it and now I see it's definitely impossible to buy an Audi car. They build shoddy cars and make a huge profit in China and now release such a vulgar commercial. Shame on you." A Weibo page devoted to the topic has received more than 200,000 views, and videos of the commercial on the microblogging site has been shared thousands of times. Audi, which is owned by Volkswagen Group, had virtually created China's luxury car market more than 2 decades ago, according to Automotive News, but in recent years has struggled to ward off competition from brands such as BMW and Mercedes-Benz. Bloomberg News reported earlier this year that Audi's China sales in January dropped 35% from the year before. This is not the first time an advertisement for second-hand cars have been deemed sexist. In 2008, BMW released a print ad in Greece promoting its used cars that featured a pouting model gazing at the camera. The tagline read, "You know you're not the first." The ad was pulled after outrage ensued, though it didn't stop at least one local car dealership from using the ad as an inspiration for its own.
So gross.
Mm-hmm.
I think it went pretty well.
I think overall that was fairly neutral.
That's insane.
That was fairly calm. I was prepared
disgusting.
for something gross. And
It's disgusting.
I found it
Disgusting.
Yeah,
Disgusting.
gross. Gross. Speaking of gross.
It's not really gross. It's kind of a good story.
There's no segue here.
Yeah. This is from, I don't know how to say it. It's like attention.com, but it's ATTN.com.
Sure.
Attiton.com. A boss's response to an employee taking a mental health day is going viral. We've all heard that we should take a mental health day from time to time, but how many of us are brave enough to actually take one and let our coworkers and boss know that mental health issues may be the reason for being out of the office? Well, Madeline Parker, a web developer, did exactly that in an email. She sent an email to her team letting them know she was taking 2 days off to focus on my mental health and was shocked by the CEO's response. She tweeted the exchange on Twitter, and it got over 30,000 likes and 8,400 retweets. So let's see, it's a little bit tiny, but I will try and use my eyes to read it. So she said, like, "Hey, team, taking the today off to focus on mental health, and that she'll be back next week 100%. And the reply was, "I just wanted to personally thank you for sending emails like this. Every time you do, I use it as a reminder of the importance of using sick days for mental health. I can't believe this is not standard practice at all organizations. You're an example to us all and help cut through the stigma so we can all bring our whole selves to work."
And the response was from her boss?
Yeah, that's a response from the boss.
Now that's a boss.
The CEO.
Yeah, now that's somebody who's a leader, right?
So his name is Ben Congleton, and he's the CEO, and it says in the article that he was stunned by the reply, like how supportive everyone was and how happy everyone was by what he had done. He says, "I wasn't expecting the exposure, but I'm so glad I was able to have a positive impact on so many people. There were so many stories of people wishing they worked at a place where their CEO cared about their health, and so many people congratulating me on doing a good thing. In 2017, I cannot believe that it is still controversial to speak about mental health in the workplace, where 1 in 6 Americans are medicated for mental health." So he's sourcing a study by Scientific American, an article from 2016, which went over to report that just over 1 in 10 adults reported taking prescription drugs for problems with emotions, nerves, or mental health. The top highlighted quote from the Medium piece that talks about the story is in 2017, we are in a knowledge economy. Our jobs require us to execute at peak mental performance. When an athlete is injured, they sit on a bench to recover. Let's get rid of the idea that somehow the brain is different. Yeah, I love it.
It's sad that sometimes a company that embraces mental health days is viewed as progressive. I think it's wonderful what they did. I'm just saying I wish that was just common. I think a sick day is a sick day. You don't feel good, you don't come in. But there's two types of employers. One, sadly, is a majority, which is doctor's note. X number of days in a row, doctor's note. This is your
It's
job
a
to
stigma
work.
thing, right?
Yeah, and it's a huge stigma thing. And most people won't say that because they think they'll be labeled, which they are most of the time. Well, he took
So it's
a
okay
mental-
to have the flu, but it's not okay.
That's what I mean, but
to
it's always been like
be
that.
depressed.
Right? That's
Yeah.
how it's okay to have any physical illness, right? To the point of everything. Sympathy, time off, flowers, people jumping in to help you, bringing you food, but you're just not feeling, you're just having a bad...
And that's why people don't ask for help, and then it's too late.
It's a cycle.
Right?
And it's a big cycle that happens, and again, a person who went to school for it, taught it, and worked in HR, I think that it just should be health days. It's just if something's not healthy, I don't care if that's you break your leg, you got the flu, or you're having a panic attack. It's all part of health.
Yeah.
Health is one thing. There isn't physical and mental. Mental isn't not physical. It's part of you. It's part of your physical body. And to have people have to say, "Oh, I think I've got the food poisoning," when in reality they can't get out of bed that day, is something that makes it then it makes it more shameful.
Absolutely.
Which then makes it worse.
Yeah.
And if your employees are your greatest asset, then you need to treat them like that.
And your employees are always your greatest
Always.
asset.
Because you don't have anything without them. And ones that support them, they are people, you lose potentially a day or somewhat of productivity to create an exponentially more happy, loyal, productive employee.
Absolutely.
Because you take their side.
Yeah.
Always. Never fails. And this is the problem. And the only thing against I've heard it, people saying, well, they could be faking it.
But you could be faking those physical injuries as well. Like,
Right.
I mean, it's not...
Exactly. And that's an insult to everybody who has ever has a mental illness.
And they're your employees. Like, you're trusting them to work within your company. You need to trust them to tell you when they're not feeling well as well.
And it could be anything, too. It doesn't just have to be clinical depression. It could be anything when it comes to any sort of thing when it comes under the brain realm.
And
of
if
things.
it's open so that people can take those days,
Yeah.
you're going to have a lot less people feeling like they need to, quote, fake it
Of
when they
course.
can be honest about what's going on with them.
Right. 100%.
Do we have a made-up word today?
Let's wrap it up with some words you made up.
Don't make any sense. Don't mean no offense. It brings laziness. What is all this craziness?
Right before I get to it, because we asked the crew if they know what the word means. In the past 3 weeks, y'all have been terrible.
Tessa got the last week's one.
Adam's not paying attention. Kathy's ready to head out the door. Wayne is just kind of just guessing. But our children guess them right.
I can see the kids are like getting my attention.
Wayne, you're guessing, but are you really trying?
But are you giving it 110%?
Are you really?
110%.
Are you really trying? Or are you just saying, I got to say something so these jackasses stop talking to me? Is that the answer here?
Repeat the words back slowly.
Yeah, the children are killing you right
They
now.
are.
By the way. So can we step it up here? Anybody who's paid to be here, can you step it up? All right, so
You're not paying me?
the made-up word.
No, we're not paying you.
The made-up. No, you're not being paid. Relax, children. Made-up word this week is brought to us by Astrid Phillips Mayer, which sounds like a phenomenal law firm.
I like that name,
by the
Astrid.
way. Adam, can you take the face off the screen? It keeps looking at me. The word this week is Petextrian. Petextrian. Petextrian.
I got this.
All right, what is it?
Walking while texting.
Wayne says walking while texting.
I think
Kathy.
it's like what he said, a pedestrian.
And Tessa
where it's
agrees.
like-
Kathy agrees.
Yeah.
And the answer is pedestrians distracted by texting. Judges,
Come on, that's in bounds.
Definitely what we said.
it was brought out by a safety council in the UK, I believe it was. Somebody's injured every 8 minutes by a car because they're distracted by their phone. So Petextrian, distracted by texting.
Maybe look where you're going.
Yeah.
You know, seems important.
I'm not going to give it to Wayne. It was not close enough.
Like we're keeping score. Like there's any real consequence.
Put it up on the big board.
There's any real consequence.
That's another
Number
point
3.
for us.
Maybe after the 200th episode, we should start with like a board.
Just have a banner back there of
Yeah.
all the
We're gonna start
words.
having stats.
Yeah, keep stats.
Yeah, Ofer.
Then they can have
Yes,
fantasy on podcast leagues,
Adam would be Ofer right now.
right?
Ofer 112.
You want to do a fantasy on podcast
Yeah.
league?
You
Where
should.
people have to sign up. Who's gonna? What's Scott gonna say? How many times is Allison gonna tell him to be quiet?
All right. Make sure you join us in the future because we've got some more great stuff coming for you, including a photographer that was sued by their customers, and in turn, she sued them. You can't wait to hear that one coming up for you soon later on. Not this episode. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and visit theunpodcast.com. And remember, friends don't let friends use QR codes.